The little beep from the air tag had been so innocent. Now it felt like a death knell. I remember the exact moment. 3 a.m. The glow of my phone screen painting the dashboard in a sickly green, illuminating the fine dust motes dancing in the stale air. My hands, usually steady from years of handling blueprints and power tools, from building structures that stood against the elements, felt like they were holding a block of ice, a solid chunk of frozen disbelief, the kind that seeps into your bones. The little blue dot on the map, so stubbornly still, wasn't the hospital where Kate supposedly had an overnight shift. It wasn't a friend's house or some late-night coffee shop, places I might have grudgingly understood, even if it meant a quick call to check in, a quiet conversation later. No, this digital betrayal was parked in front of an apartment building I'd never seen before, miles across town, nestled in a neighborhood that felt a world away from our quiet suburban cul-de-sac. A building that, according to the digital breadcrumbs, she'd been spending a lot of time at lately, not just once, but repeatedly. The air in the truck cab was thick with the smell of stale coffee from my travel mug, a bitter counterpoint to the rising bile in my throat, a taste of ash and regret that coated my tongue. For weeks, something had felt off. It wasn't just the late nights, the sudden, almost aggressive need for extra shifts and networking events after her big promotion, the one that had supposedly brought us so much pride and financial security. It was the way her eyes, one so open and inviting, so full of the shared history we'd built, would dart away when I asked about her day, like she was guarding a secret vault. The faint, unfamiliar scent of a different cologne clinging to her work shirts. Subtle, almost imperceptible, but there, a ghost of another presence, a phantom limb of intimacy I hadn't known existed. I'd brushed it off, told myself it was the stress of her new executive role, the pressure of a demanding corporate ladder, the kind of sacrifice we made for our family. We'd been together 12 years, married for that long too. 2 kids, an 11-year-old boy, a 13-year-old girl, a mortgage, 2 cars, the whole American dream 9 yards. You build a life, brick by painstaking brick, pouring in sweat and sacrifice, believing in the foundation. And then one quiet night, a tiny, innocuous piece of text shows you it was all built on quicksand. What do you even do with that kind of information? Do you storm in, fists flying, demanding answers, risking a public scene in front of strangers, maybe even our kids? Do you call her right then and there and watch the blue move frantically as she scrambles for a lie, trying to outrun the truth that's already been laid bare? My first instinct was pure, unadulterated rage, a hot, buzzing fury that made my ears ring, a primal urge to smash something, anything, to make the physical pain match the emotional. But then, a cold dread settled in, chilling me to the bone, replacing the heat with an icy clarity. This wasn't just a one-night stand, a momentary lapse in judgment, a drunken mistake. This was the pattern. The AirTag history was a damning timeline. Weeks of clandestine visits, a carefully constructed alternate reality she'd been living. This wasn't a mistake. It was a choice, a deliberate, calculated choice that had been going on right under my nose. How could I have been so blind, so utterly, completely oblivious to the signs that, in hindsight, seemed to scream betrayal? I thought of the wedding photo on my nightstand, the one where our smiles were so wide, so genuine, frozen in time, framed forever, the symbol of everything we were supposed to be. Now it felt like a cruel joke, a relic from a life that never truly existed, a performance I'd been blissfully unaware of. Was it always there, this other life? The secret garden she tended, while I was busy watering the weeds in ours, thinking we were growing something beautiful together? It was a bummer, a real kick to the gut, the kind that leaves you breathless, gasping for air in a world that suddenly feels alien, where the ground beneath your feet has vanished, the kind that makes you question every shared laugh, every late-night conversation, every I love you, wondering if they were just lines in her script. I pulled out of the parking spot, not heading home, not heading to that apartment, just driving. The city lights blurred into streaks of color, a kaleidoscope of confusion. Each flash a new question, a new piece of the puzzle I hadn't known existed. My mind, usually so orderly, so good at problem solving, at breaking down complex issues into manageable steps, was a chaotic mess, a tangled knot of disbelief and dawning realization. But beneath the shock, a tiny, almost imperceptible spark ignited. A question, cold and sharp, cut into the fog. What else was she hiding? What else had I missed in our perfectly curated suburban existence? And how deep did this rabbit hole go? I knew one thing for sure. This wasn't just about a cheating wife. This was about something far, far bigger. Something I was only just beginning to uncover. The game had changed, and I was just learning the new rules. And I had a feeling I was going to be a very quick study. The silence in the house was a physical thing, heavy and suffocating, punctuated only by the soft, rhythmic breathing of our kids from their rooms upstairs. I parked the truck in the driveway, the same spot I'd parked it for over a decade, but it felt like I was pulling up to a stranger's home. The familiar scent of Kate's perfume, a mix of vanilla and something floral she'd worn since we were dating, usually comforting, now felt like a cruel mockery, a phantom limb of intimacy that no longer existed. It clung to the air, a constant, mocking reminder of the life I thought we had. I walked to the living room, past the framed photos of family vacations, the kids' artwork taped to the fridge, the little imperfections that made our house a home. Now, they just felt like props in a play, a carefully constructed facade. Every object, every memory, seemed to hum with a silent question. How much of this was real? How much of our shared history was just a performance? The dawning sun was just starting to peek through the blinds, casting long, accusing shadows across the polished hardwood floor, revealing dust motes dancing in the morning light. Tiny particles of a life that was slowly, silently crumbling. I found Kate in the kitchen, just as I had left her, meticulously wiping down the counters, a ritual she performed every night before bed, a desperate attempt to control the chaos of her day. She looked up, her eyes wide, a flicker of something I couldn't quite place. Surprise? Fear? Before she composed herself. "Hey, you're home early," she said, her voice a little too bright, a little too casual, like she was reading lines from a script. Rough night at the hospital? I just stare at her, the words catching my throat, a lump of betrayal so big I thought I might choke on it. The air tag, that tiny, unassuming piece of plastic, felt like a lead weight in my pocket. It was the key to a truth she hadn't wanted me to see, a truth that was now screaming in my ears. No, not at the hospital. I finally managed, my voice a low rumble, unfamiliar even to me. Unless Memorial Hospital moved to the other side of town, to that apartment complex on Elm Street. Her face, usually so expressive, went utterly blank. The color drained from her cheeks, leaving her skin ashen, like a statue carved from ice. The dishcloth in her hand, still wet, slipped from her fingers, landing with a soft, wet thud on the floor. A tiny, insignificant sound that somehow amplified the deafening silence between us. "What are you talking about?" she whispered, her voice barely audible, a fragile whisper that tried to deny the undeniable. I pulled out my phone, the screen still showing the little blued, stubbornly, undeniably, parked right where it shouldn't be. "This," I said, holding it up, the glow illuminating the stark reality. "This is what I'm talking about. The air tag. Funny how technology works, isn't it? Shows you exactly where someone is, even when they'd rather you didn't know." Her eyes, one so open and inviting, so full of the shared history we'd built, now darted around the room, searching for an escape, a lie, a way out. A sudden, unexpected wave of nausea washed over me, the smell of her vanilla perfume suddenly cloying, suffocating, making my stomach churn. And then, the plot twist. She didn't deny it. Not really. Her shoulders slumped, a sigh escaping her lips, a sound of defeat, but also, surprisingly, a strange kind of relief. It's not what you think, Eric," she said, finally using my name, a name that felt alien on her tongue. "It's complicated. He just listens. He doesn't judge. After promotion, the pressure, the kids, you were always so busy with your projects, so focused on work. I just needed attention. Someone who saw me. The justification hung in the air, thin and transparent, yet somehow she seemed to believe it. She needed attention? What was I? a background character in her life, a convenient provider while she sought emotional intimacy elsewhere. Was our marriage just a stage for her to perform on, waiting for a better offer to come along? A cold, hard knot formed in my gut. This wasn't just about her needing attention. This was about something deeper, something she wasn't saying. The way she spoke about him. He just listens, he doesn't judge. It hinted at a vulnerability, a crack in her carefully constructed facade that I hadn't known existed. Or perhaps a calculated manipulation, a way to shift the blame, to make me feel responsible for her choices. A broken mirror lay on the counter, shattered into 1,000 pieces from when our youngest, Lily, had accidentally knocked off the shelf last week. Now, it felt like a chilling reflection of our marriage, fragmented of a once whole image, scattered and irreconcilable. I knew then that this wasn't just about an affair. This was about a carefully woven web of deception, one that went far beyond a simple infidelity. The air tag was just the first thread I'd pulled. What other secrets lay hidden beneath the surface of our seemingly perfect life? What other truths was she still holding back? And how far was I willing to go to uncover every single one of them? The game had indeed changed, and I had a feeling the next move was mine. It wouldn't be about anger or tears or shouting. It would be about precision. It would be about making sure that when the dust settled, she understood the true cost of her choices, in a way she could never have imagined. The air crackled with the unspoken, a thick, suffocating blanket of truth that settled over us, heavy and suffocating. Kate's confession, delivered with that strange mix of defeat and relief, hung in the morning light like a noxious gas. "Attention," she'd said. "Someone who saw me." The words echoed in my head, thin and transparent. Yet she seemed to truly believe them. My mind, usually a well-oiled machine, felt like it was grinding to a halt, every gear seizing up. Was I truly so blind, so consumed by my own world, that I had missed her silent cries for help? Or was this just a convenient narrative, a neatly packaged excuse to deflect blame, to paint herself as a victim in a story she'd authored? The metallic tang of fear, or maybe just adrenaline, coated my tongue, a bitter, lingering taste. I looked at her, really looked at her, and saw a stranger. The woman I'd shared my life with for over a decade, the mother of my children, was suddenly an enigma, a puzzle with missing pieces. Attention? I finally managed, the word a raw whisper, barely audible. "You think this is about attention, Kate? You think sneaking around, lying to me, to our kids, is just about needing to feel seen?" Her eyes, still wide and a little panicked, darted away, unable to meet my gaze. The chill seeping from the floorboard seemed to intensify, wrapping around my bare feet, a constant reminder of the coldness that had invaded our home, our perfectly ordinary suburban home. "It started after the promotion, Eric," she said, her voice a little stronger now, a practice cadence, as if she'd rehearsed this conversation in her head 1,000 times. "The pressure, the expectations, everything changed. And you were so proud, so happy for me, but you didn't see the other side of it. The loneliness, the constant need to prove myself." He just understood. He, the nameless, faceless other, the one who understood. The buzzing silence of the kitchen appliances, usually accompanying hum, now felt like a low, menacing growl, a prelude to something far more sinister. How do you rebuild trust when the foundation is rotten, when the very ground beneath your feet feels like it could give way at any moment? What kind of attention was she truly seeking, if not the kind that came from the man who loved her, who built a life with her? A sudden, unsettling thought pricked at my mind. Her promotion. It had been a big deal, a significant step up the corporate ladder at a major tech firm. More money, more prestige, but also, as she'd always stressed, more responsibility, more travel. "Who is he, Kate?" I asked, my voice flat, devoid of emotion. "This he who understands so much." She hesitated, a flicker of something new in her eyes. Not fear, but calculation. "Just a colleague. Mark. He's in product development." The name hung in the air, unremarkable, yet it felt like a key, unlocking a door to a room I hadn't known existed. And then, the plot twist. As she spoke, my gaze drifted to the small corkboard by the fridge, usually covered in school notices and grocery lists. Tucked behind a faded drawing from our son, Leo, I saw a small, official-looking keycard, the kind you use to access corporate buildings. It wasn't hers. Her company used different ones. This one had a generic logo, no company name, just a small, almost imperceptible icon of a stylized building. It was the same icon I'd seen on the website for the apartment complex on Elm Street when I looked up on my phone, a quick, almost unconscious search after the AirTag had led me there. A corporate rental. Not a personal apartment. Not a love nest. This wasn't just an affair. This was a business arrangement. A chilling thought, a cold tendril of suspicion, snaked its way into my gut. The cracked phone screen on the counter, from when Lily had dropped a few days ago, reflected a distorted image of my own face, a grim, unfamiliar mask. It was a symbol of the broken reality I was now inhabiting, a shattered reflection of a life I thought I knew. This wasn't just about a cheating wife seeking attention. This was about something far more intricate, something tied to her new job, her promotion, perhaps even her company. What kind of arrangement was this? What was the true nature of her relationship with Mark, this colleague who understood? And how did this corporate rental fit into her carefully constructed web of lies? The questions swirled, a dizzying vortex of confusion and dawning dread. I knew, with a certainty that chilled me to the bone, that the AirTag had only shown me the tip of a very large, very dark iceberg. And I was about to dive in. The key card felt cold and smooth in my palm, a tiny rectangle of plastic that held the weight of 1,000 unspoken questions. My mind, usually a fortress of calm, was a whirlwind of suspicion. This wasn't just about a cheating heart. This was about a calculated deception, a carefully constructed narrative that was beginning to unravel thread by thread. The scent of stale coffee still lingered in the kitchen, a grim reminder of the morning's brutal honesty, but now it was tinged with something new, the metallic tang of impending discovery. I waited until Kate left for work, her goodbyes clipped, her eyes still avoiding mine. The moment the front door clicked shut, I was on my laptop, the key card resting beside the trackpad like a silent accuser. Corporate rentals. They were common enough for traveling executives. But why would Kate need one, especially one tied to a generic company, not her own? And why would Mark, a colleague, be involved? The hum of my laptop fan was the only sound in the quiet house, a steady, mechanical breathing that accompanied my frantic search. My fingers flew across the keyboard, digging into corporate registries, public records, anything that could shed light on the apartment complex on Elm Street and this mysterious Mark. The building's registered owner was a shell corporation, a common enough tactic in the corporate world to obscure ownership, but the layers of obfuscation were unusually thick. It was like peeling an onion, each layer revealing another, yet never quite getting to the core. Had Kate always been this adept at hiding things? Or was this a new skill honed by her recent promotion? How deep did this rabbit hole go? Hours bled into one another. My eyes burned, tracing lines of ownership, cross-referencing names, following digital breadcrumbs through a labyrinth of corporate filings. The more I dug, the more convoluted it became. The shell corporation was linked to another, which was linked to a third, all pointing back to a larger holding group. A group that, a quick search revealed, had recently acquired a significant stake in Kate's company. Not just a stake, but a controlling interest. A cold knot tightened in my stomach. This wasn't just about a corporate rental. This was about a hostile takeover, or something equally unsettling happening right under the nose of her company's board. And then, the plot twist. Mark. He wasn't just a colleague in product development. He was a senior vice president of corporate strategy for the holding group that now controlled Kate's company. Her direct superior. The man who had orchestrated the acquisition. The man who now, effectively, owned her. The revelation hit me like a physical blow. This wasn't a casual affair born of loneliness. This was a power play, a calculated move. The attention she sought was emotional solace. It was professional advancement, a strategic alliance forged in the shadows of infidelity. The bitterness on my tongue intensified, a taste of ash and betrayal that settled deep in my throat. I thought of the corporate logo on the key card, that stylized building, now a symbol of a gilded cage. Kate hadn't just been cheating. She'd been an unwitting pawn, or perhaps a willing participant, in a much larger game of corporate espionage and manipulation. The air in the room felt suddenly thin, suffocating, as if all the oxygen had been sucked out by the sheer scale of the deception. What else had she done for this attention? What lines had she crossed? What information had she shared to secure her place in this new corporate hierarchy? And what would be the cost, not just to our family, but to her, when this intricate web finally unraveled? My phone buzzed, a text from Kate. Therapy at 5, don't be late. The message, once a sign of hope, now felt like a chilling command. Therapy, a place where we were supposed to unpack our issues, to heal the wounds of infidelity. But how could we heal when the wound was so much deeper, so much more insidious than I had ever imagined? The game had indeed changed. It was no longer just about a cheating wife. It was about a corporate conspiracy, and my wife was right in the middle of it. And I was about to walk into that therapy session, armed with a truth she had no idea I possessed, a truth that would shatter her carefully constructed world, just as she had shattered mine. The sterile scent of antiseptic and stale air freshener hit me the moment I stepped into Dr. Evans' waiting room. It was a smell of forced calm, of carefully managed emotions, a stark contrast to the storm brewing inside me. Kate was already there, perched on the edge of a plush armchair, scrolling through her phone, her posture rigid, a subtle tremor in her hands. She looked up, her eyes flicking to mine, then quickly away. The silence stretched, thick and uncomfortable, punctuated only by the soft, rhythmic ticking of a grandfather clock in the corner, each tick a tiny hammer blow against my already frayed nerves. I took a seat opposite her, the plush fabric of the couch feeling oddly suffocating, like it was trying to swallow me whole. My phone, still clutched in my hand, felt heavy, loaded with the weight of the truth I carried. The key card, tucked into my wallet, was a cold, hard reminder of the corporate labyrinth I'd just navigated. Was she truly oblivious to the depth of her entanglement, or was this entire therapy charade just another layer of her deception, a performance for the benefit of the therapist, and perhaps for herself? What did she really hope to gain from this staged vulnerability? Dr. Evans, a woman in her late 50s with kind eyes and a perpetually serene expression, entered the room, her smile a little too practiced, a little too perfect. Kate, Eric, thank you for coming, she began, her voice a soothing balm that grated on my ears. Let's go into the office. We followed her, the air in the therapy room even more stifling, heavier with unspoken truths and carefully constructed lies. The walls were adorned with generic, calming art, abstract swirls of blue and green that did nothing to calm the tempest raging within me. Kate started talking, her voice low and hesitant at first, then gaining momentum, a carefully rehearsed monologue about feeling unseen, unappreciated, about the pressures of her new role and the emotional void she'd felt. She spoke of Mark as a confidant, someone who understood the unique challenges of her industry, someone who offered unconditional support. Not a lover, not a partner in corporate intrigue, but a sympathetic ear. My jaw tightened. It was a masterful performance, a seamless blend of half-truths and carefully omitted details, painting me as the neglectful husband, the one too caught up in his own world to notice his wife slowly drifting away. The faint, almost imperceptible scent of her perfume, usually comforting, now felt like a cruel mockery, a phantom limb of intimacy that no longer existed. And then, the plot twist. As Kate reached the crescendo of her carefully crafted narrative, the office door, which I thought was securely closed, creaked open. Standing there, framed in the doorway, was Mark. Not just Mark, but the Mark, Senior Vice President of Corporate Strategy. He looked at Kate, his expression a mix of concern and something else. Triumph? Before his gaze flicked to me, a flicker of surprise, then a swift, almost imperceptible hardening. "Oh, I'm so sorry," he said, his voice smooth, confident, utterly devoid of genuine apology. "I thought this was the executive coaching session. My mistake." He made a show of checking his watch, a subtle gesture of control, of power. "I'll just wait outside." The air in the room suddenly felt charged, electric with unspoken tension. Kate's face already pale and ashen, her eyes wide with a mixture of shock and dawning horror. Her carefully constructed facade, built brick by painstaking brick, had just crumbled. Mark's unexpected appearance, his casual intrusion, was a chilling confirmation of something far more insidious than a simple affair. This wasn't just about emotional support. It was about a calculated strategy, a web of manipulation that extended far beyond our marriage, deep into the corporate world. The chessboard on Dr. Evans' desk, a decorative piece, suddenly felt like a chilling metaphor for the game being played, each piece a pawn in a larger, unseen strategy. My gaze met Mark's for a fleeting moment, a silent acknowledgement of the battle lines drawn. He knew I knew, and Kate, she was trapped, caught between her carefully constructed lies and the brutal reality now exposed. What else was he involved in? What other strings was he pulling? What other lives was he manipulating? And what would happen when this carefully balanced house of cards finally collapsed, taking everyone down with it? The game wasn't just about infidelity anymore. It was about power, control, and the ruthless pursuit of both. And I had a feeling the next move, a devastating counterattack, was about to be made. The air in Dr. Evans' office went from thick to utterly frozen, a silence so profound you could almost hear the gears turning in Mark's head. My words, calm and cutting, hung in the air like smoke. His face, usually a mask of practiced confidence, flickered, revealing a raw, primal fear. The tiny red light on his lapel, the miniature camera, seemed to pulse, betraying his hidden agenda. He'd walked in here, thinking he was the unseen player, the puppet master, only to find himself caught in a spotlight he hadn't anticipated. The sudden, chilling realization that he wasn't the only one with secrets, that his meticulously planned surveillance was now exposed, hit him like a physical blow. Kate, still slumped in her chair, stared at Mark, then at my phone, then back at Mark, a slow, dawning horror spreading across her features. The scent of her vanilla perfume, usually accompanying presence, now felt cloying, suffocating, a bitter reminder of the life we'd shared. Dr. Evans, ever professional, cleared her throat, her voice a little shaky. Mark, I think it's best if you step out. This is a private session. She gestured toward the door, her hand trembling slightly. Mark ignored her, his eyes locked on mine, a silent battle of wills playing out across the room. What is this, Eric? He finally snarled, his voice low, stripped of its usual smooth charm, revealing the raw aggression beneath. Some kind of lame setup? You think you're so clever, don't you? He took a step forward, his hand instinctively moving toward his lapel, as if to rip off the tiny camera, to erase the evidence of his own deceit. But it was too late. The cat was out of the bag. And then the plot twist. Before Mark could say another word, my phone buzzed. Not a text, but an incoming call. I answered it, putting it on speaker. Eric, it's Detective Miller. We're outside Dr. Evans' office. We have a warrant for Mark Harrison, also known as Mark Hayes, for multiple counts of corporate fraud, insider trading, and illegal surveillance. We also have a few of his former associates outside, ready to cooperate. The name Mark Hayes hung in the air, a chilling revelation. He'd been using an alias, another layer of his deception. The former associates were, I knew, the victims of his previous schemes, the ones I quietly contacted, the ones who had lost everything. They were ready to talk. Mark's face went from pale to a ghastly white. His eyes darted wildly around the room, searching for an escape, a way out of the trap that had just sprung shut around him. The subtle hum of the office's air conditioning, usually background noise, now seemed to mock his frantic desperation. How many lives had he ruined with his ruthless ambition, his cold calculations, his casual disregard for human decency? What kind of monster was he to orchestrate such elaborate schemes, to prey on vulnerability, to destroy family for profit and power? A symbolic image, a cracked ceramic mask, once pristine and unblemished, now shattered into 1,000 pieces, revealing the grotesque, predatory face beneath. That was Mark, the charming, understanding confidant. The successful executive was nothing but a manipulative jerk, a predator in a tailored suit. The sound of heavy footsteps echoed in the hallway outside, growing louder, closer. The game was over. He was caught. But even as the door burst open and 2 uniformed officers entered, their presence filling the small room, Mark's eyes, still fixed on mine, held a chilling glint of something else. Not just defeat, but a warning. "You think this is over, Eric?" he rasped, his voice barely a whisper, yet it cut through the chaos. "You have no idea who you're really messing with. I'm just a small fish. There are bigger sharks. And they don't forgive. Not ever." The officers moved in, their movement swift and decisive, placing Mark in handcuffs. As they led him away, his gaze remained fixed on me, a silent promise of retribution, a chilling hint at a deeper, more sinister conspiracy. The air in the room slowly began to clear, the stench of fear and deception replaced by the faint, lingering scent of police-issue hand sanitizer. Kate was sobbing, her body shaking uncontrollably, her carefully constructed world having imploded around her. Dr. Evans, visibly shaken, fumbled for a tissue, but I just stood there, the air tag still clutched in my hand, its blue a silent testament to the truth. The battle was won, but the war, I realized, was far from over. Mark was just a pawn. And the bigger sharks? They were still out there, lurking in the shadows, waiting for their moment to strike. The air in Dr. Evans' office, once thick with tension, now felt strangely hollow, filled only with Kate's ragged sobs and the distant wail of sirens fading into the city hum. Mark was gone, a phantom presence, but his words, "bigger sharks," echoed in my ears, a chilling promise of unseen dangers. The faint, lingering scent of police-issue hand sanitizer was a stark reminder of the chaos that had just erupted, a grim counterpoint to the vanilla perfume that still clung to Kate, a scent I now associated with deception. Dr. Evans, recovering her composure, offered Kate a tissue, her voice soft, almost a whisper. "Kate, are you all right? We can stop here for today." Kate just shook her head, tears streaming down her face, her body trembling uncontrollably. Her carefully constructed world, built on a foundation of lies and ambition, had just imploded. Was this genuine remorse, or just the shock of being caught, of her carefully orchestrated life unraveling so spectacularly? What did she truly feel, now that her protector, her confidant, was being led away in handcuffs? I stood there, the air tag still clutched in my hand, its blue a silent, digital witness to the truth. My initial surge of triumph, of righteous anger, had begun to recede, replaced by a cold, unsettling emptiness. Mark was a jerk, a manipulator, and he deserved what was coming to him. But his arrest didn't magically fix anything. Our marriage was a wasteland. Our family fractured, the trust irrevocably broken, the taste of ash and regret, which had lingered on my tongue since that first night in the truck, intensified. I didn't know Eric. Kate finally choked out, her voice raw, barely audible. "I swear, I didn't know he was like this. He made me feel important. He said you didn't understand the corporate world, the pressure. He said you were holding me back." The excuses, thin and transparent, still flowed, even now. She was still trying to spin the narrative, to cast herself as the victim, the naive pawn. But the image of the blinking red light on Mark's lapel, the tiny camera recording her every word, every vulnerable moment, flashed in my mind. He hadn't just used her, he collected her, piece by piece, for his own twisted game. And then, the plot twist. As Kate continued to sob, rambling about Mark's manipulations, my phone buzzed again. This time it was an email from an anonymous sender. The subject line, regarding Mark Harrison's associates. My fingers, still numb from the shock of the past hour, fumbled to open it. It was a single encrypted file. A video. I clicked play. The grainy footage showed Mark, not in a corporate office, but in a dimly lit, opulent room, surrounded by men in expensive suits. One of them, a hulking figure with cold, dead eyes, was familiar. I'd seen his face on a news report years ago, a notorious figure linked to organized crime, a businessman who operated far outside the law, a shark. The video was silent, but the message was clear. Mark wasn't just a corporate fraudster. He was connected, deeply, and the men he was connected to didn't play by the rules. A symbolic image, a perfectly polished apple, gleaming and inviting on the outside, but rotten to the core, infested with worms. That was the world Kate had stepped into, lured by the promise of power and validation. She hadn't just cheated. She'd stumbled into a viper's nest, a dark underworld of corporate corruption and organized crime, far beyond anything she could have imagined. The chill that ran down my spine had nothing to do with the air conditioning. It was the cold, hard realization that Mark's arrest was just the beginning. "You have no idea who you're really messing with," Mark's raspy voice echoed in my head. "I'm just a small fish. There are bigger sharks. And they don't forgive. Not ever." Was this email a warning? A threat? Or a desperate plea for help from someone who knew he was about to be silenced? What did these bigger sharks want? And how far would they go to protect their secrets? To silence anyone who threatened their empire? The battle for my marriage might have been lost. But new, far more dangerous war was just beginning. And this time, it wasn't just about revenge. It was about survival. For me, for my kids, for everyone caught in the crosshairs of a game I was only just beginning to understand. The grainy video played on a loop, a silent, chilling tableau of power and menace. Mark, the corporate manipulator, now just a small, terrified figure amidst hulking men in expensive suits, their faces grim, their eyes cold and dead. The shark I'd seen on the news, the one linked to organized crime, loomed large on the screen, his presence radiating a quiet, deadly authority. Mark's parting words, "bigger sharks," echoed in the sterile air of Dr. Evans' office, a promise of unseen dangers that now felt terrifyingly real. The faint, lingering scent of police-issue hand sanitizer, once a sign of order restored, now felt like a thin veil over a deeper, more pervasive corruption. Kate's sobs had subsided into quiet sniffles, her face buried in her hands, oblivious to the silent drama unfolding on my phone screen. Dr. Evans, still shaken, was trying to offer comfort, her voice a low, soothing murmur. But I was miles away, pulled into a new, far more dangerous reality. This wasn't just about a cheating wife and a manipulative colleague. This was about a network, a web of power and influence that stretched far beyond corporate boardrooms, deep into the shadows of the city. What did they want with Mark? What secrets did he hold that were so valuable, so dangerous, that they would risk exposing themselves? And what did this mean for me, for my kids, now that I pulled back the curtain on their operation? I slipped out of the therapy room, my movements automatic, my mind racing. The anonymous email, the encrypted video. It was a lifeline, a warning, or perhaps a trap. The cold dread that had settled in my gut since the AirTag discovery intensified, now laced with metallic tang of genuine fear. I walked through quiet streets, the setting sun casting long, accusatory shadows, each one seeming to hide a lurking threat. My house, once a sanctuary, now felt like a vulnerable target. How do you protect your children from an enemy you can't see, an enemy that operates in the shadows, outside the law? What kind of fight was this, and how could I possibly win against forces so vast, so ruthless? Hours later, locked in my home office, the scent of old paper and dust filling the air, I was deep in the digital rabbit hole again. I used every skill I'd honed over years of problem solving, of breaking down complex structures, to trace the digital fingerprints of the anonymous email. It was a ghost in the machine, bounced through multiple servers, encrypted layers, designed to be untraceable. But I was persistent. I cross-referenced the faces in the video with public records, news archives, anything I could find. The hulking figure with the dead eyes was indeed a notorious enforcer for a powerful, old-money family, the Morettis, whose legitimate businesses masked a vast criminal enterprise. They were the sharks. And then the plot twist. As I dug deeper, a name kept reappearing, subtly linked to the Moretti family's legitimate holdings, a name that made my blood run cold. Judge Thomas Albright, a respected figure, a pillar of the community, known for his tough-on-crime stance. But the digital breadcrumbs, faint and almost imperceptible, linked him to a series of shell corporations, real estate deals, and offshore accounts that were clearly fronts for money laundering. He wasn't just connected. He was a key player, a high-level enabler, providing legal cover for the Moretti empire. The realization hit me like a physical blow, a cold, sickening wave of understanding. This wasn't just about corporate fraud. It was about systemic corruption, reaching into the highest echelons of power. A symbolic image, a gilded cage, beautiful and enticing on the outside, but trapping everything within its bars. That was the American dream, twisted and corrupted by unseen forces, by men who operated with impunity. Their power protected by those who swore to uphold the law. My family, my kids, were now caught in that cage, unwitting pawns in a game far beyond their comprehension. What did they want with Mark? And what would they do to anyone who threatened their carefully constructed empire, anyone who dared to expose their secrets? The cold feel of my phone, still displaying the video, was a stark reminder of the danger I was now in. My phone buzzed, a text from Lily. "Dad, can you pick us up from school tomorrow? Mom's not feeling well." The innocence of her request, juxtaposed with the grim reality I was uncovering, was a punch to the gut. I looked at the video again, at the faces of the sharks, at the chilling realization that my actions had put my children directly in their crosshairs. I had to protect them. But how? How do you fight an enemy that controls the very system designed to protect you? I knew one thing. I couldn't just walk away. I couldn't pretend I hadn't seen what I'd seen. The game had just become deadly, and I was about to make a move that would either save my family or destroy us all. The silence of the house pressed in, no longer a comfort, but a heavy shroud. Lily's text, innocent and trusting, was a stark counterpoint to the chilling reality of Judge Albright's corruption. My hands, usually steady, trembled slightly as I stared at the screen. The faces of the Moretti enforcers burned into my mind. The scent of old paper and dust in my office, once familiar, now felt like the stale air of a tomb, a place where secrets were buried. How could I protect my children from an enemy that controlled the very system designed to protect us? What kind of fight was this, when the law itself was compromised? I knew I couldn't go to the police. Not yet. Not with a judge, a supposed pillar of justice, at the heart of the Moretti network. Any evidence I presented would be buried, spun, or used against me. My life, my kids' lives, would be in even greater danger. The cold dread that had settled in my gut since the AirTag discovery now pulsed with a terrifying urgency. This wasn't just about revenge for a broken marriage. It was about survival, about navigating a treacherous landscape where the lines between right and wrong, legal and illegal, had blurred into an indistinguishable mess. My mind, usually so systematic, began to sort through the chaos. I needed leverage, something undeniable, something that would expose Albright without directly implicating me, something that would hit the Morettis where it hurt most, their carefully cultivated veneer of legitimacy. I thought of the countless hours I'd spent building my business, brick by painstaking brick, always playing by the rules. Now, those rules felt like a cruel joke. Was it fair to fight fire with fire, to descend into their darkness to bring them into the light? And then, the plot twist. As I sifted through the digital detritus of Albright's online presence, cross-referencing his known legitimate dealings with the shell corporations, I found it, a series of encrypted messages, hidden within a seemingly innocuous online chess forum. Not just messages, but detailed instructions, financial transfers, and, most damningly, a coded conversation about a cleanup operation involving a specific property. The address matched a recent, high-profile murder case, a young journalist found dead after investigating a suspicious real estate deal. The Morettis had been cleared, thanks to Albright's swift intervention. But these messages, these digital breadcrumbs, told a different story. They were the smoking gun, undeniable proof of a judge's complicity in murder, a symbolic image, a blindfolded Lady Justice, her scales tipped, her sword broken, standing on a pedestal of lies. That was the system I was up against, a system where power and corruption had replaced truth and fairness. The metallic tang of fear, now mixed with chilling resolve, coated my tongue. This wasn't just about financial ruin or social humiliation. This was about murder, and Kate, in her desperate search for attention, had stumbled into the orbit of these monsters. My phone buzzed again, a call from Kate. I let it go to voicemail. There was nothing left to say to her now. Her betrayal, once the focal point of my rage, now felt like a distant memory, a minor skirmish in a much larger, deadlier war. The soft hum of my computer fan, usually accompanying sound, now felt like a low, menacing growl, a prelude to something far more sinister. What would the Morettists do when this evidence came to light? How far would they go to protect their secrets, to silence anyone who dared to expose them? And could I, a middle-aged man who built houses, truly take on a criminal empire and a corrupt judge? The questions hung in the air, cold and sharp. I knew one thing for sure. The game had just entered its final, most dangerous phase, and I was ready to play.